Welcome to today's edition of Mental Health Matters. Today's topic is going to be victims of crime. We have a great show in store for you guys today, so stay tuned. Miriam, welcome once again as a guest on our show today. Why don't we start by you kind of introducing yourself and just kind of tell us a little bit about the program that you oversee.
Thank you, Jesse. So my name is Miriam Omanchawi. I'm the director of the Victims of Crime Resource Center at McGeorge School of Law. I am an attorney also by trade. So a little bit about the program. We operate a statewide hotline for crime victims. We help victims of all crimes at all stages of the criminal justice process. So some folks contact us before they call the police. Others call us during the criminal process. Others call us 20 years after the crime looking for help, a lot of times for connections with mental health providers. And we help explain to callers their rights as victims of crime and also provide a tailored list of resources depending on their needs. Because we help victims of all crimes, each list is going to be different. We also spend a lot of time with crime victims explaining their rights in the criminal justice system. So in California, in 2008, a law was passed that gives crime victims 17 rights in the California Constitution. So we spend time with callers explaining what those rights are, what those rights mean for them, how can they request those rights, and make sure that they're protected and enforced. We also have a website that has a lot of information, including a chat function. So in addition to calling us, victims and survivors can chat with us online. And we also recently enabled our phone number to be SMS enabled, so they can text our phone number as well. So we're really trying to stay ahead of the technological wave, make sure that our services are as accessible as possible for everyone. We have a translation line to make sure that our services are accessible to people who are not English speakers. And we've also translated our publications into plain language, which means it's written at the 5th grade reading level. We have them available in the top 5 languages spoken in California and also in Braille.
Wow. You just said a mouthful right there. So I want to write some stuff down because I want to come back to some, I'm gonna have some questions for some information you just shared. But I want to kind of highlight your background as an attorney. How long have you been an attorney and what made you want to become an attorney?
That's an excellent question. So I graduated law school in 2011 in December, and I sat for the February bar in 2012. So I was a barred attorney in May of 2012. And I've been practicing in victims' rights ever since. I fell in love with this area of the law during law school because I really feel like victims are a lot of times marginalized in the criminal justice system. And what we do at the center is really empower them, give them hope, connect them with critical resources to help them overcome the crime. The reason I went to law school is to help those in need. So this kind of fit right in with that.
So how long have you been with the Resource Center?
So I actually worked at the Resource Center as a student.
No way.
I've been with the Resource Center for a long time. Ever since I was a law student, I worked there part-time. And then once I sat for the bar and was waiting for results, I came back as a graduate legal assistant, and then I started as an attorney and ended up being a director of the program. Moved my way up. But I really believe in the mission of the program. I really feel like victims need this information. nobody asked to be a victim.
Right.
A lot of times they're kind of propelled into this process and they have no idea where to go, what the rights are, where to get help. And I feel like it's critical for them to have that information to be able to come out of this process empowered and not re-victimized.
That's exactly right. So what are some of the qualifications for the you guys services that you provide?
That's an excellent question. So we actually have no qualifications.
Okay.
Yeah, anybody can call us to get information over our hotline or our chat function. In addition to the hotline and chat, we also provide free technical assistance or research assistance for victim service providers on a statewide level. So victim advocates and others providing services to victims can call us and ask us legal questions pertaining to victims' rights, and we'll do the research for them and write a memo and send it to them to help empower them as they help the victims with the issues that they're facing.
Wow.
We also go out and do presentations to schools on various issues and other community groups on cyberbullying, internet safety. We present to victim advocates on victims' rights and services and others. We really tailor our presentations to the needs of the organization that's making the request. Another program that I wanted to talk about that also has no qualifications is our Legal Center, which was launched in October of 2016, and we provide direct legal representation to crime victims, helping them enforce their victims' rights in the criminal process.
So the Legal Center, the community is able to come to that center, or is it just still like online, or on the phone or online?
No, it's actually face-to-face.
Nice.
It's by appointment only, but if folks call the 1-800-VICTIMS hotline, they can get connected with the Legal Center team, and then you can make an appointment to see one of our attorneys, and our attorneys will basically do a triage with the victim, because victims don't need assistance in one area of the law only. A lot of times they need help with housing, they need help with immigration, they need help with family law. So we'll help kind of figure out what areas of the law they need assistance with, try to help them in-house with the things that we specialize in, and then connect them with others that can provide them the other services that we can't provide in-house.
Wow. So you guys serve all age groups pretty much.
Exactly, yeah. We have no qualifications for our services. So, we've had kids as young as 10 contact us if they're being bullied or cyberbullied, and we have seniors call us, and everybody in between. Yeah.
It's a lot. This is a lot. So I know you and I my chair is squeaking. I know you and I kind of talked about cyberbullying now that you mentioned it. So what recommendations can you give like the youth or anyone who is experiencing any type of cyberbullying? Because a lot of time I think that people that are going through cyberbullying don't really realize how serious it is.
Sure.
And it also, start to affect people's mental health.
Right.
Some people have actually committed suicide and things like that.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that as to what people can do.
That's an excellent point. Cyberbullying is a very serious crime, and it really does have a detrimental impact on our youth and on their mental health specifically. And as you said, on a national level, many students have ended up committing suicide because of the cyberbullying. The thing that's unique about cyberbullying versus face-to-face bullying is that it's there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with a open audience. Right? Everybody can see it, everybody can read it. So that creates a lot of pressure on the students. What I would recommend for a student who is facing any type of cyberbullying is to tell somebody. A lot of the cases where students end up committing suicide, they haven't told their parents. They haven't told a trusted adult who can do something and take steps. I would tell them that there is hope. There is a way to get out of this, and it's not your fault.
Exactly.
So seek help. Your parents are really your best advocates. They will fight for you. And it is something that should be addressed at the school level, especially if the impact of the cyberbullying is felt at school. So if I were a parent with a student who is being cyberbullied, I would make sure to keep a track of all the evidence. Keep a copy, don't delete stuff, don't respond, because engaging with the bully is kind of feeding right into what they want. And also, you can end up being in the wrong as well if you say something that's, criminally threatening or et cetera. So don't respond, save the evidence, and then, contact the police or the principal, get authorities involved, because anything that happens online, there's always a trail. There's a digital trail that can be there, and it's connected to the perpetrator through their IP address. So as long as you get connected with law enforcement or school officials, hopefully they can track down who's doing this and get them in trouble.
It's interesting because a lot of people who have not been victimized wouldn't understand what a victim goes through. For example, some people may say, well, it's just the internet. Why can't you just, delete them? Or why won't they just not do certain things? Or even people who may be in an abusive relationship. A lot of times because someone have not experienced that, they think, well, why can't she just get out? Why can't he just get out? But I don't think it's as easy as people think it is.
Sure.
Talk a little bit about that because.
Nobody chooses to be a victim.
Right.
Nobody chooses to be a victim, and you don't know how a person's going to respond when they are victimized. And a lot of times, because, for example, in domestic violence, there's a cycle of violence. There's a lot of stages of that cycle of violence where the victim feels sorry for the perpetrator. They forgive the perpetrator. There's a honeymoon phase. So there's a lot of different dynamics that play into victimization in general, but specifically domestic violence. You can't just turn it off or ignore it or delete it online, because what if somebody saved it, right? For the example of cyberbullying, what if somebody took a screenshot of a mean message or a picture that was shared and you didn't want it shared and spread it to other people? If you delete it off your account, doesn't mean that it was deleted off of everybody's account. So it's not something that you can just ignore. Because the impact is long lasting, unfortunately.
I want to talk a little bit about some of the news headlines that has been going on a while, and allegedly some of the stuff that R. Kelly had allegedly have been doing for many years to a lot of these young women that have potentially have become victims. For me, I've had several conversations with different people about this, and a lot of people have said where, the potential has already been there in the news. So if you see that he had allegedly have been doing these for so many years, well, how did these girls that have known this for so many years end up in these situations? And sometimes, some of the response was, well, we think that a lot of them didn't have mother and fathers at home, or had low self-esteem, or something was going on with them to be able to fall into that pattern and allow him to allegedly do the things that he do. Do you think that that may have something to do with people who can know that this person may be a predator, but still walk down that path?
I think that definitely your life circumstance, if you're in a broken home or if there's abuse going on at home, that can impact it. But these perpetrators, unfortunately, are very smart, and they spend a lot of time grooming their victims. So they, and what grooming means is preparing them for eventually giving giving them gifts, manipulating them in one way or the other. And that does kind of break down the victim emotionally, and ends up allowing them to fall into the hands of these predators. We see the same thing with online predators who will engage with minors online through gaming, through social media, and share likes. And you can find out a lot about people from what they post online. So they will start saying, oh, you watch this show, I watch this show too, that's my favorite, and then start talking to them, and little by little the victim will feel more comfortable and give information, and they will create a close bond, and the person will then be able to take advantage of that situation.
Wow. As a parent, what can parents do to monitor that type of behavior in their child? In other words, what can a parent do to step back and say, okay, I see some changes going on in my child, to try to prevent that from actually happening?
I think the first thing that parents have to do is recognize how dangerous the online world is. A lot of parents will give their children cell phones, computers, and a lot of times the schools will give them computers to turn in homework, to do research, and not understanding, how dangerous this technology can be. So if my child's sitting in the room with me, I feel safe because they're in the same space as I am. But if they're online, they can be engaging with predators, they can be engaging with criminals, they can be engaging with drug dealers, they can be engaging with a lot of people. So really educating yourself first as a parent about the dangers of the online world, getting familiar with the various social media platforms that the children are using. The children now are not using Facebook because Facebook's for grandma and mom. So they're using other platforms like Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram, and others. Every time we go out and present to schools, I learn something new from these students because they're, 2 steps ahead of everybody else in terms of technology and social media. So for a parent to stay on top of the social media platforms that their children are using and are engaged with is critical. And parents really need to sit down with their child and talk to them about what's right, what's wrong in the online world, right? What's appropriate, what's not appropriate. We're seeing a lot of sexting between students, and that's, child pornography. So both the person that's taking the picture can be charged with the creation of child pornography, and the person receiving it, disseminating it, can be charged with crimes as well. So it's really important for us to educate our students and our children about the consequences of their online activity. And Jesse, what we're seeing now is more and more their online persona is impacting what universities they get into, what internships they're able to keep, what jobs they're able to get. There was a recent story of a NASA intern who posted something on Twitter and was used an inappropriate word and then ended up losing that externship because somebody had responded to her Twitter saying language. And it turns out it was somebody pretty high up at NASA, and because she responded not so nicely. And she ended up losing that externship. So, really teach your children that what you do online will impact your future and can have criminal consequences. That's really important. And I think a lot of parents really don't think about it from that perspective.
No, they don't.
And they just give their child the phone or the laptop, and they feel comfortable because, hey, they're at home. They're not going out to the bars or, sneaking out when they're in this whole different world online.
I have... well, I'm not going to say that because I'm not going to say it. But I think you just really gave some good feedback to a lot of parents. I think some parents too, they feel that this is the thing. This is what's going on. This is how the youth communicate. This is how And I think a lot of parents too don't want to have that butt heads with their children. Because a lot of times they feel like they will lose that communication. They will lose that friendship, so to speak. And so a lot of times they just give in. I know parents like that today that, they have teenage daughters that is dressing like they're 21, 22, and they're only 15 or 14, and just give them the world. And then, but you're having all type of trouble out this particular teenager or kids at home, and that's not, in my opinion, the right way to raise them, because you're setting them up for failure. Right. And potentially setting them up to become a victim, because when you just give them everything they want without any teaching them the value of a dollar, the value of how to be responsible as a child. When you are no longer there to provide that, then what? They could potentially be that man. I mean, it's just all type of stuff that's going wrong with that. But
absolutely, I think children need parameters and they need guidance. And I think that's the parents' role, is to guide their children, teach them right from wrong. We're not always going to be there for our kids. So when they're about to experience something new through a cell phone, or if you're going out and you're getting dressed up, it's important for us to explain to our children, and help guide them through this, because their brains just aren't developed enough to really understand all the different choices that they have. So I think guidance is definitely needed.
I know your kids is like, oh, Mom.
Exactly. They say, oh, you know too much. That doesn't happen in the real world, Mom.
but that's good that you are out here doing this type of work, because like you said, when you go into the schools, the kids kind of teach you something new.
Yeah, they
so that's going to help you within your parenting.
Right.
You know.
Right. But when we go out and present, you can always tell that the kids are kind of taken aback by the information that they're getting.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the kids are really oblivious to the fact that everything that you do online is going to be there.
Yes.
They feel if they go on Snapchat and send a picture to somebody, that picture really does disappear.
Yeah.
They don't understand that, no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Anything you do online is going to be there.
Yes.
So getting that reaction from students is very telling, because A, I know that they're engaged in this type of behavior.
Yeah.
And B, I know that they haven't heard about these consequences before. So it really is our, responsibility as parents, as educators, to inform our students and our children of these risks.
Wow.
So that they won't be victimized.
Exactly. So how do people learn about your services? How do victims learn about your services?
Yeah, so we are listed on the back of the victim's rights card, on the Marcy's Law card, that victims are supposed to get at their initial contact with law enforcement. Okay. So that's how a lot of survivors and victims learn about us, and also through referrals from other agencies. So we have a wide network of agencies that we collaborate with fairly closely on a statewide level, so a lot of times they'll hear about us from another service provider.
Nice. And who fund you guys' program?
So the California Office of Emergency Services funds our programs and almost all other victim service programs across the state. Nice.
And do you guys have other languages outside of the English language that you can speak to victims if they spoken from another language? Yeah,
we do. So we use a translation line. I do have some staff members who are bilingual.
Okay, good.
Because our number one language other than English is going to be Spanish. But we sometimes get callers that speak other languages as well. So we use a translation line for that. We really try to accommodate all callers and make sure that they're comfortable as they explain their story to us.
Yeah.
And one thing that I wanted to highlight is that our hotline is anonymous and confidential. So we don't collect any information about the name, the address, the phone number of the caller. The caller can tell us as much or as little as they want. We have a lot of callers that don't share with us even the crime type. Wow. They just want to understand what their rights are and their resources. So we don't push anybody to give us more information than they're comfortable with. We take every caller as a unique individual, and really try to be as accommodating to their needs and not make them feel uncomfortable in any way.
Wow, this is a really, really unique program, because for example, people who may be a victim or who may go through some things. Mm-hmm. Because the first train of thought, look, I need to go and get some legal advice. Mm-hmm. And they can't afford to get a lawyer, but sure, you guys can kind of give them some information, resources, exactly, or just assist them that could really help them how to deal better with their situation.
Right. And a lot of times our callers aren't aware of these resources, so they don't know that the Sacramento, for example, Law Library has a lawyer in the library program where you can go get a free 20-minute consultation with an attorney every week. They don't know that LISNIC runs a specific program, or the Voluntary Legal Services Program runs a specific program. The majority of our callers don't even know that they have rights in the criminal process. They feel like they just have to kind of go along with the system, that they're just another player, a piece of evidence in the case. They don't understand that, no, they have the right to be heard. Right. They have the right to be treated with fairness and respect. They have the right to restitution. So those are all things that we really empower our callers with, to let them know that, no, they are important. They are a critical piece of this criminal justice process, and that there are resources to help them with other legal matters or with finances. So the Victim Compensation Program can reimburse crime victims for certain expenses, and we help explain, who may qualify, what they have to do to apply, who can help them apply, etc.
Yeah. Do you guys collaborate with any other agencies or work with any other agencies on different things or projects?
Yeah, we do. So we work very closely with a lot of the statewide victim services programs. So the Safe at Home program, which provides a free P.O. box for victims of domestic violence, stalking, sexual assault. And elder abuse, they provide a free P.O. box for those victims, and we help. We're an enrolling agency here in California. We work closely with that program. We work closely with the victim compensation program to make sure that victims are applying, because victims can qualify for up to $70,000 of expenses for medical expenses, mental health expenses, relocation, security, and other things through the victim compensation program. We work closely with the victim advocates in our district attorney's offices across the state, making sure that they are empowered with information through our research and technical assistance programs. I'm also involved in their training on a statewide level, so I provide training at their 40-hour entry-level victim advocate training on victims' rights to make sure that they understand what that means for them and the work that they do as well.
Yeah.
So we really try hard to collaborate with all organizations here locally in Sacramento. You know, we work with Weave, with the Family Justice Center, with My Sister's House, and others as much as we can, because you know what, Jesse, helping a victim really takes a full community. One organization can't do it all.
I believe that.
And we really have to work collaboratively to make sure that victims' needs are all addressed, and that they end up, you know, feeling more empowered at the end of their trip through the criminal justice process.
Yeah. What I'm hearing you saying is because it seems like the victim, there's different needs that needs to be met when somebody is going through whatever it is that they're going through, whether it's financially, emotionally, physically, and things like that. And there are different types of victims.
Right.
And certain victims' process may be a little longer than other victims' process. You know, it's interesting, but I was watching something online about this college student who had raped a girl when he was 19 years old. And I think now he's like 25 or 26. And so what the criminal justice system did, they gave him probation. He didn't have to do any jail time and stuff like that. And that right there alone just caused me to dig more and more and more. But the girl who allegedly that he raped, I mean, she was furious.
Oh, yeah.
She was furious, and I just kept reading and I got to think like, wow, like here it is, this girl is going to have some type of trauma from this particular incident right here, because here it is that she has some type of hope that this man was going to pay for what he did to her.
Right.
But it seems like now he got slapped on the wrist, and a lot of it was political, whatever, according to the article I was reading. But it's just like he got away with it. Yeah.
And that's a frustration that we hear over and over again from victims is, you know, why are charges not filed?
Right.
Why is a plea offered?
Right.
And the person is now, you know, pleading to a misdemeanor, not a felony.
Right.
Why? And I think what the victims have to understand is that the way the criminal justice system works in the U.S. is that, and especially here in California, is that, you know, these decisions are up to the district attorney, not up to the victim. The victim is not prosecuting the case. That's the job of the prosecutor in the district attorney's office. However, that does not mean that the victim doesn't have the right to participate, to have a meaningful voice in that process. And a lot of times when they do participate and they're able to provide information and feedback to the judge, that does impact the ultimate sentence. And the victim has that right through a victim impact statement. They have the right to speak in hearings. They have the right to confer with the prosecutor to let the prosecutor know whether or not, you know, they agree with the offering of the plea or not. So the victims, you know, really need to understand what the rights are, and that's what we're here for, you know. So if anybody's going through this process, please give us a call, because we'll help explain the process to the victims. I think going into it just with a layperson's knowledge from the TV, you could think that the victim can say, oh yeah, I want all charges dropped. And sometimes the victims do want that. And a lot of times in domestic violence cases where they don't want, you know, their partner to be prosecuted, they didn't call the police, it was a neighbor. But that decision's not up to the victim. That decision's up to the prosecutor. So the victim needs to understand that. But that doesn't mean that they don't have the right to participate in a meaningful way. They have the right to provide input. They have the right to be there throughout the process and provide information and get information and be heard. And studies have shown that, you know, victims come out of the criminal justice process either more victimized because of the way they were treated by those in the system, or empowered, and feeling hopeful. And it really is up to all of us to provide them with the information and the support so that they come out empowered and not re-traumatized.
Right. And that's what you just brought me to my next point. So, I want to kind of talk a little bit about police brutality. Because, I mean, for me, being an African-American male, I see a lot of, stuff going on with the police when it comes to our youth, African-American youth. And I do feel like there is a lot of shady stuff going on with the police and different things like that. But also, I feel like, when law enforcement approach anybody, regardless of what color they are, I think that we have a responsibility to, if they say, put your hands up or put your hand, whatever, I feel like we need to submit to the authority. But what happens is a lot of times, because the history that African Americans have had with law enforcement, sometimes people handle things the wrong way. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough subject, and it's really concerning. I mean, I have my own son who's in high school now, and close to driving, and he is a minority and looks dark. And he asked me, he said, "Well, when are you gonna have the talk with me?"
Wow, interesting.
Yeah. So it is something that's on my mind right now, especially as my son's getting to that age. I think there's a lot of implicit bias in our system that needs to be addressed, and I think there's a lot of education on both sides that needs to happen. And going back to our last discussion about education about the system. I know here in Sacramento County, with the recent events, there's a lot of frustration. Just understanding that these decisions are up to our prosecutors, and law enforcement's the one that they do the investigation and forward their findings to the DA, and the DA decides. However, even if the DA decides not to file charges, there are other avenues for justice, right? There is the civil system. So the victims can hire an attorney and talk to an attorney about their other options. So that it's not the end of the road. But I think in terms of the way that the system treats, minorities, African Americans, and others, I think that once again, a community as a whole has to address this implicit bias that the system has to help address it, because these are things that have kind of been brewing for hundreds of years, and they, it'll take time for them to be resolved, and I don't know if it'll be resolved in our lifetime.
I don't think so. It's just too much going on. But I love the fact that your son came to you. So for me to hear that from you, it's on his radar. It's definitely on his radar. And I'm telling you, I'll give you an example. In 2015, I went to Chicago to visit my family. That's where I'm from. And my brother-in-law was trailing me because I was going to turn in my rental car at one of the local rental car stations up there. And so as I was driving, all of a sudden, these police cars, like two police cars, just swerved, and so me knowing how things go in society with African Americans and minorities and police officer, I pulled over and he jumped out, and and I'm like, was very aggressive and license and registrations and all this and stuff. I'm like, okay. I said, well, I'm visiting from the state of California. This I was talking to him. I'm visiting from the state of California. This is a rental car. My driver's license, everything is in a book bag. I said, now you can reach back there and get it, or I can reach back there and get it. There's no weapons or in there or anything. Now, meanwhile, my brother-in-law, he pulled over. I love the way he handled the situation because he pulled over and he started filming the whole thing. He didn't jump out. He wasn't, didn't act crazy. He just, filmed it. And so the guy was like, okay, reach back there and get out. Mira, I was so terrified. I'm no joke. Like I really felt like I was going to get shot and killed right there because especially in Chicago. So I said, okay, I'm gonna reach back there slowly. Now the other police officer on the other side, So I reached back there slowly, pulled it up, and I said, now, do you want to open it or I can open it? So just because I'm like, I have to, you know, disarm their train of thought, you know. And so, so they let me open and stuff like that. Meanwhile, 2 more police cars pulled up, jumped out. So at this time, my heartbeat is going like, just boom, 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 boom. So finally, he looked and saw everything was okay. And he took it to his car. Well, he took it to his car first, and he came back. Oh, mistaken identity. You didn't even give me a chance. You know, but because I was educated. That, trust me, if I wasn't, and I would have responded in a very aggressive way, I would not.
Or would just reach back to grab your ID.
I wouldn't be here today.
I mean, you know, I think that just as you were scared, part of them was probably scared as well that, you know, because of that implicit bias, you know, they're approaching it in maybe a more severe response, you know, in a more exaggerated response than it needed to be. But that's because they're kind of, you know, on edge as well and afraid for their safety. So I think education is definitely key. And I think educating our youth on, you know, how to respond, you know, calmly, not making sudden movements and all of that is critical. And I know the ACLU has done a lot of really good work in this arena as well. And they have a lot of workshops, and other organizations have a lot of workshops on, you know, what to do, how to respond, and that kind of thing. So it's a little bit outside of the scope of what our area specialty, but it's definitely on my personal radar.
That's
for
good.
Sure.
That's good. So do you guys have any new programs?
So we do. We actually have 2 new grants in addition to the Legal Center, which is the direct legal services here in Sacramento County. We also received a grant, and we just launched a hotline for low-wage workers who become victims of crime.
Wow.
And this is on a statewide level. So we have another hotline specifically tailored for people who are low-wage workers and are victims of crime, for them to get information about what their rights are and get connected with agencies. We're going to be launching a podcast series actually this year, and interviewing experts in this area. So we'll provide information about, you know, sexual assault, about human trafficking, about labor violations, etc., through the podcast, which is very exciting. We're also going to come up with a video series as well, informational videos on various topics, including, you know, scams, identity theft. And the last program that is new is a training for service providers on a statewide level. So we were funded by the California Office of Emergency Services to put on a training on cybercrime for service providers, because what we see is that a lot of victim service providers are inadvertently getting ask questions about cybercrime. So whether it's identity theft or fraud from victims that they're helping, you know, with something else. So if a victim of domestic violence is talking to them and they're getting services for a criminal case, and then they say, hey, by the way, I think that my identity's been stolen, and that, you know, somebody's opening up accounts in my name, what can I do? And there's just a huge gap in knowledge, Jesse, on these crimes. So we're really working this year to put together a training with other partners, with law enforcement, with district attorney's office and others in the field, and we'll have 4 trainings throughout the state that'll be free. They'll also be live streamed, so it'll be accessible to anybody. So we're really excited about that. Nice.
You guys are doing a lot. You guys are definitely doing a lot, but you know what? It's needed because it's helping people in the community, in my opinion, on a different level. You know, when people are victimized, it's really a traumatic experience. You know, depending on the level of whatever is going on with them, just depending on what's actually going on. But it's a, you know, your mental health, dealing with things like that. It's something that potentially can affect someone for the rest of their lives. You know. Is there, or what is the relationship between victimization and mental health?
So there is a lot of the victims do end up needing some type of mental health assistance, counseling, and other things to help them work through what's happened. You know, nobody has to be a victim, and when you get victimized, you know, you feel violated. Even if somebody just, you know, if somebody stole your identity, if somebody stole your wallet, if somebody stole your purse, you know, somebody has violated you. So imagine a victim, you know, or survivor of sexual assault, of domestic violence, of physical assault, of homicide, and their families. So they really do need some type of mental health service to help them deal with the trauma that they've endured. And there is the program, the Victim Compensation Program, that'll help cover those expenses for victims. So it's really critical for victims to get connected with that program to apply, because those funds are there to help them access mental health services, to help them really work through what's happened and ensure that they are able to move on.
Wow, that's good. So what would you say, I'm just going to create a scenario here, if someone was feel like they was being discriminated at work because of age, sex orientation, whatever it may be, race, but they were afraid of really approaching their management or whoever they felt that this was coming from, but you know, it was obvious that some type of discrimination is going on. What advice would you give that person in how to handle a situation like that?
So there are laws. I would let them know that there are laws that protect them, and for them to really understand the process, because there are state agencies that will, the Department of Fair Employment and Housing, that you can submit you know, a complaint to, and they can investigate. There's HR that can also investigate, and there are laws that are there. I mean, nobody goes to work to get victimized, to get harassed, to get threatened or intimidated, and there are organizations that specifically deal with this type of issue here in Sacramento. So I would let them know, that they have rights, let them know where they can get information about those rights, and also help connect them with organizations in their area that can provide them with direct assistance and possibly direct legal assistance as they're going through that complaint process and investigation process.
That's good, and I'm glad you brought that out too, because I kind of, know someone who's actually kind of dealing with that. So matter of fact, I may actually have them call your
please do. Please do.
Now I'm thinking about it, just kind of going through some things at work and stuff, and it's hard because, you know, sometimes people, I think sometimes people can think that they're weak, or vulnerable, or they are vulnerable, but sometimes they think that they're weak if something goes on with them and they report it. I feel like sometimes people think that, okay, like for example, a rape victim or somebody who was sexually harassed. A lot of times they don't say anything because they automatically think like, oh, people are not going to believe me. Or it's my fault. So maybe I shouldn't did or said this. And they kind of hold all this stuff in. And it's like, no, it's not your fault. You didn't, you know, so.
And there's a lot of shame
involved.
A lot of shame involved with it, And I think being afraid that you won't be believed, or being afraid that you'll get fired, or the other, you know, possible repercussions that go through your head, that's always there. But, you know, having an anonymous hotline to call where you can get information and get direction, I think is very invaluable to victims and survivors as they try to navigate through this maze of you know, services and processes.
I know, I'm going to say this carefully because I don't know if they actually watched the show, but I know someone who at a young age, she was you know, she was sexually assaulted by a family member for many years. And later on in her adulthood, it came out to the family and stuff only because someone else was kind of going through the same thing. But, you know, the family member that did that, the perpetrator that did that, was never confronted because it would have brought shame to the family. It would have brought division in the family and things like that. And so they just swept it under the rug. And my first train of thought was like, no, you need to kind of bring this to the light because somebody else actually may be going through this. He's, you know, so, but they never said anything. And it's just like everything's okay. And I don't I understand why they chose not to deal with it now.
Right.
In a sense where you don't want division in the family, but at the same time, it's like, how is this healthy? Like, is it healthy in your opinion, or?
I mean, it's really tough. I mean, each survivor, especially survivors of sexual assault, are going through a lot.
Yeah.
And I mean, what I always recommend is we respect their choices, because I don't want to be in a position where I'm telling somebody who's been victimized that, you need to do this, or because I'm kind of acting like the perpetrator. No, this is what you need to do. You're wrong. This or that. But maybe educate them and talk to them about, well, this person, statistically speaking, may be doing this to somebody else. So, and I understand all the various dynamics, and sometimes there's a lot of pressure, cultural pressure, community pressure, to not say anything, to kind of hide it under the rug, as you said. So, I think victims and survivors will come out when they're ready. They'll deal with it when they're ready, but at least helping them connect with mental health services may help them at least start that journey. To recovery, because it's definitely a traumatic thing. And I think the Me Too movement has shown us that one survivor speaking out can empower many other survivors to come forward. There were the gymnast who were getting sexually assaulted by their doctor. Wow. And what was his name?
Wow, this is
I think his name was Nasser, but one survivor came out and said it, and then a lot of other survivors said, well, this happened to me too. And that really helped them prosecute him. And they all provided victim impact statements, and it was very powerful. So I think that it's also empowering when they're ready to come forward for other survivors to follow suit and do the same.
Well, I like that you said that, because you just educated me on that, and but I never looked at it that way. I never looked at it in a sense where it should be when the victim is ready to come forward, because it makes sense, because they're comfortable level, so to speak. So that is that's important. So thank you for that.
I mean, in dealing with a lot of survivors over the years, that's one thing that I learned, just because I feel strongly about something. I've had survivors who, were called to testify in court and wanted nothing to do with a criminal process.
Really?
I mean, they just have moved on with life, and they don't want to look back. This happened, 10, 20 years ago. And I, understand and respect where they're coming from. But once you get a subpoena, you have to respond to it. But, kind of understanding and respecting their choices, and also seeing what talking about it is doing to them. They're like, I'm reliving what I went through. And I'm having nightmares, and I can't sleep, and it's all coming back to me. So it's a tough situation, and I don't wish it upon anybody. And I think our role as victim advocates, as victims' rights attorneys, and community members who are trying to help victims, is to support them and encourage them and empower them, and let them know that there are resources out there to help them as they're going through their journey.
Many years ago, I was renting a piece of property, in the North Natomas area. And so when I went to rent this property, it was an open house.
Okay.
And so the guy, he was there, he was very, he was very outgoing, and just, had everything set up. He had snacks, he had water. So I really thought that this was legit. And so I really wanted to rent this house, like, just because it was nice, it was roomy or whatever. And so later on, maybe like a week later, he called and said, oh, well, you didn't get it for whatever reason and stuff. He said, an elder couple needed more than you, in some of the words. I qualified for it, but, it's like, okay. But I thought something was weird in the beginning, because the credit score, and I got good credit, but the credit score was like 500, which was kind of weird. Well, it was a red flag for this particular house and this particular property. I said, okay. And so maybe like a couple of weeks later, I ended up going out of town for my job or whatever, going to a conference. So he called me and he said, oh, well, the paperwork fell through. They didn't have enough money or whatever. So you was next in line. Do you still want the property? I was like, yeah. So when I got back in town, I met him. I gave him a money order and all that stuff to kind of hold the property. So I met him maybe like a week later. I signed a lease and all this other stuff, but I still knew something wasn't right. And so the day that I was supposed to move in, he gave me the keys like maybe 2 days early. And so I'm like, because I want to be able to go over there and clean up and all that stuff before, for actually moving day. Went over there, the house was nothing done. I mean, literally, the walls needed painted. They still had holes in the wall. Nothing. It was just like a foreclosure. So the next day, of course, I called the guy, and he wouldn't answer the phone. So I'm like, look, I'm going to call the police, and so when I left the voicemail, he called right back. So at that point, I knew that he was scamming me. So make a long story short, I did end up going to the law enforcement, and come to find out this man was scamming so many people.
Yeah.
And I felt that. Let me tell you something. I felt the shame because I felt like I was pretty sharp. I felt like I'm pretty smart. Right. I'm a sharp guy. But how did that happen to me?
Right.
So I can understand why people that get victimized feel ashamed.
Oh, yeah.
And so later on, maybe a year or two later, I had to go and testify against him in court, and I did do it.
Well, I'm glad he was caught.
Yeah.
A lot of times we're getting callers who fell prey to scam artists and others online or through the phone, and they, the perpetrators are overseas or in another state, and law enforcement just doesn't have the resources to investigate everything. So I'm glad it worked out in your case where you did go to court and you did hopefully get a restitution order.
Let me tell you what I did, and this was not the best way, Miriam, to go about it. So when I went and talked to the police officer, they pretty much like don't have any contact with him and all this stuff. But I'm thinking this man got almost $2,000 of mine. So I was playing both ends. So what I did was I saved all the text messages, all the emails, and I was giving it to them, but they did not know I was communicating with him. I met this man 3 times at Starbucks with a friend, and I got every single damn of my money back.
Wow.
But law enforcement, they didn't know that, but because I understood what they were saying, but I didn't feel like I didn't feel like my life was in danger, which is why I chose to meet him in a public place. I can sense that he was really fearful that he didn't want me to go law enforcement. I knew that. So I kind of played that. I mean, I'm from Chicago streets, born and raised, so I kind of, knew how to, think my way around a little bit. So I met him 3 different times, literally in 3 weeks, and he gave me so much. And the last time, he said, did you go talk to police? And I said, no. I told you I didn't talk to law enforcement, which I actually was because I wanted him to be stopped. I didn't want him to do it to anybody.
Somebody else, right. We're seeing a lot of scams here in our town. There's a red light scam. You haven't heard of that one?
Really?
Let me tell you about that one. Yeah, so this happened, I think, a couple years ago. In Sacramento, where people were getting calls from law enforcement saying that you had a red light violation, you didn't pay the ticket that was mailed to you, and now there's a warrant out for your arrest. So of course, as a law-abiding citizen, you're like, what? I never got anything in the mail. Well, now there's a warrant out for your arrest. Police has been dispatched. They're on their way to arrest you.
Wow.
So what would your response be? Like, oh my God, well, can I take care of this now? I'll pay you with my credit card. And they made thousands of dollars with the scam. There's the IRS scam, which I'm sure you've heard of. I know I've received several calls from the IRS. But unfortunately, they're preying on the vulnerable in our community. They're preying on elderly. They're preying on immigrants and people, who may not understand that IRS won't call you. You won't get an email from your bank saying, you need to change your password or else we're shutting your account. And this is how these scam artists and criminals are getting our information and, defrauding us.
Wow.
So there's a lot of that, and I think you were very lucky in that your case was prosecuted most of the time. That's not the case, unfortunately.
And I was very cooperative with the state's attorneys and in law enforcement. I was, because, and I struggle with that. I'll be honest with you, because where I'm from, snitching, you should be doing, but I'm like, I know this man, frauded me.
Right. He was preying on people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I got my money back, but still, there will be other people.
Oh yeah.
And the law enforcement officer that was actually communicating with me, she said that, you pretty much you was the one that really kind of put, because no other people were really wanted to come forward.
Yeah.
You know, and really tell about what had happened and stuff like that. But me, I'm like, you know, here's the email, here's the text message, get it all, you know.
Right.
And so they were really impressed with my willingness to cooperate.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. And that you had all that evidence, you know, ready to go.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So we have run out of time.
Oh, already.
And it goes quick.
It does.
So thank you so much.
It does. Well, thank you so much for having me on the show. And please, you know, if you know of anybody or if any of our viewers are, you know, a victim of a crime, to give us a call. I mean, we're really there to help and support victims as they go through this process. And our goal is really to empower them with information about their rights, because they do have rights and they are an important part of the criminal justice system.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Jesse.
And that's it for this edition of Mental Health Matters. If you enjoyed this particular show, if you would like a DVD copy of this show, if you would like to be a guest on the show, please dial 916-366-4600. Thank you.